welcome to the show. I appreciate you tuning in for another brand new review. So what's in store for you here tonight? You might remember a couple of months ago, I was talking about the 30th anniversary of my favorite film of all time, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. Since then, wrapped up in the celebration of that anniversary, we've looked at a few episodes of the Tales from the Crypt TV show as well too. So tonight, we're looking at two more episodes. We're gonna look into season 3's The Trap and season 6, The Pit. So strap in, y'all. Let's jump right on into things. We're going to start here with the season 3 episode, The Trap. Now, if you're wondering, why did I pick this episode out? It is 100% solely blamed on my good friend, William R. Washington. Will reminded me recently that him and one of his brothers have had this thing for the longest time coming from this episode where they'll just scream, "Hey, I'm Lou Paloma." Lou Paloma is the protagonist here of this episode. And like we had talked about it for a bit and gone back and forth because I was like, wait a minute, that's the Michael J. Fox episode. He's like, no, that's not the Michael J. Fox episode. If you haven't seen the episode The Trap yet, this centers around Lou Paloma, played by Bruce McGill, who is an obnoxious, egotistical, mean-spirited deadbeat who is abusive not only to his loving wife Irene, but also to his impressionable brother Billy. Down on his luck and trying to find a way to get out on top, Lou hatches a plan to cash in his life insurance policy by faking his own death with the help of Irene and Billy. Unfortunately for Lou, though, once the plan is hatched, he finds out that he might be the odd man out. That is The Trap. Now, the whole thing about Tales from the Crypt that we know is that these are all very much morality stories. Whether it's somebody who's mean-spirited, somebody that has a good heart, whatever the case is, they're going to learn a valuable lesson by the end of the episode due to some kind of transgression that they end up making here during the runtime. And that's something that you have to hold on to as well too, folks, is that this show very much does punish people who are, the good people of the world as well. That's literally the purpose of this, is to give us a way to avoid these kind of same mistakes happening in our lives as well too. Now, of course, we feel zero sympathy here for Lou Paloma. Again, he is a terrible, terrible person. The way that he's treating Irene, the way that he treats his brother, just the way that he acts in general, he is this horrible, horrible person that none of us want to spend a second or two around at all. So, of course, when Lou dies, there's not a lot of people that sad about it, except for his loving, doting mother, which does bring one of the more interesting parts of this episode up. When I was talking about the man that would be death and Dig That Cat, he's well gone, I talked about how those episodes incorporated a lot of comic and comedic comic style elements in there, not just by like the paneling shots that were set up from time to time, but because of the music as well, that they would use like these circus fun house themes is the best way I could describe them in certain scenes that might need to be played a little bit more serious, and it added very much to the tone of the episode. And that happens here in The Trap, where Irene and Billy finally are confessing their attraction to each other and begin to go on it on top of Lou's casket, which he is inside at that moment. And then they've accidentally swapped on or switched on the incinerator. And as they keep heading towards that burning flame, this funhouse circus music is playing in the background. So I still love those little touches that are being put in, even into the 3rd season here of Tales from the Crypt, especially because this is something that they very much get away from as the seasons keep on going on. Now, some of the episodes I've talked about before will have a lot of scares in it. It'll be a much, much scarier premise itself. Monsters, ghouls, ghosts, witches, vampires, werewolves, whatever the case is, there's a lot more scarier setups out there, including one that are just about normal, everyday people. The Trap isn't really there to scare us, ultimately. It's more so supposed to be this dark comedic piece about this guy who ultimately gets what exactly is coming to him. And there's a lot of fun with it as well, too, whether it's James Tolkien, who you might know better as Principal Strickland from Back to the Future, showing up as the sergeant of the police force investigating Lou Paloma's death, the fact that Michael J. Fox, who also directs this episode, shows up as the prosecutor in Lou's case when Lou is held liable for his own murder, towards the end of this episode as well too. Whether it's Lou down in Cabo or Cancun, wherever he ends up at, and just going over and over the same day for 6 months waiting for Irene and Billy to show up, only to realize that he's been had. There is a lot of good humor for sure in this episode, but it is very much missing the scare. So if you go into this one, this is one that you can have a bit more of a lighthearted time with. And in this case, it is somebody who's ultimately getting his own just desserts from the treatment and the action that we've seen him do earlier on in the episode. So it's kind of one of the more complete Crypt episodes out there, even though there's really not much in the way of scares for this one. I am so curious if this is one that y'all got a chance to check out here. Let me know in the comment section. The Trap is definitely one of those episodes that I did not catch in its original run, nor in the Fox rerun. This is one I caught on the DVDs once they came out, about 20 years ago, and I was working my way slowly through the episodes I hadn't seen. But there it is, folks. That is The Trap. All right, and the second episode that I'm talking about tonight is the season 6 episode, The Pit. Now, in the question of why I picked this particular episode out, I was trying to go random at this case and go through the seasons of the episode to just find one, and I happened to land on this one here, and I'm gonna warn you right off the jump that this is not a particularly interesting episode of Tales from the Crypt. It has slightly more scares in it than The Trap did, but that's only because The Trap is very much played straightforward as this dark comedy, whereas The Pit is not, and therefore technically it's more scary. It's a little bit more scarier than what it's presented to actually be. But part of the reason why I was okay going in on this one is that this is one of the episodes I got to catch back in the day on the Fox rerun, going when they were going through all the episodes. And so this one very much stands out in my mind. And I'll talk about the main reason why, even though it's not one of the better Crypt episodes, it still stands out to me so much, and it's still one of my absolute favorites. So The Pit, first of all, focuses on two dueling martial artists, Felix Johnson and Aaron Scott, played by Mark Dacascos and Stoney Jackson, who have been just going back and forth for years. Both of them have these domineering managers who happen to also be their wives that keep trying to up the stakes for the both of them. These two ladies played by Debbie Dunning and Margene Holden. Now, you might know Debbie Dunning as Heidi from Home Improvement. It's so crazy how much people are going back around all the different shows and movies back in the early to mid 90s. It's so cool to seeing her not doing this nice, like fun, energetic, good time kind of role that she had in Home Improvement, to switch over to be this that she is in The Pit. Now, as we make our way through the episode, we're supposed to understand that Felix and Aaron don't actually have this death feud against each other. They don't actually have any issues with each other at all. They fought numerous times, but the whole feud is being manifested and orchestrated by their two wives, who actually do have problems with each other. And the whole running gag of this is that this fight that the two of them are supposed to have will end off in one of them getting the head or the lead of this new action franchise, The Pulverizer. Plays right into it, along with the very meta mentionings of HBO and of Fox. Now, the twist in this one here is that the big pay-per-view fight that's being set up by Wayne Newton, of all people, who plays fight promoter Wink in this case, it turns out that this was actually, funny enough, a trap set by Felix, Aaron, and Wink for their wives. Their wives are actually the one who will have this fight to the death, a Malaysian death match, live on pay-per-view and HBO. And that's the twist of the story, that these two women who have been pushing everything this entire episode are finally going to get their just rewards here for their own action. Now, I said that by the sheer fact that The Trap was a dark comedy, that The Pit was automatically scarier. There's not that much in the way of scares here for this, honestly. There's no monsters, there's no serial killers or anything like that. And even though, we're supposed to be leading up to this giant colossal death is not what's at play here in this story either. But I mentioned there is a reason why this episode has stuck with me and has stood out to me at this point for 30 years. It's been 30 years, y'all. 30 years last November, actually. And it's the fact that, again, I saw this when they broadcasted it originally on Fox. And at a young age, I had only seen a few episodes of Tales from the Crypt at that point. And to me, that very much had screamed that Tales from the Crypt was all about monsters and ghosts and demons, all that stuff I said earlier on. So even though I wasn't seeing any of that in the episode, it was hard to shake the feeling that something scary was happening and maybe I just didn't understand it. Now, of course, seeing it as an adult, there's nothing scary in this episode here at all, but it doesn't change the fact that perception is reality. And my perception was very much that Tales from the Crypt was this terrifying thing. So yeah, even though this episode wasn't supposed to be scary, it freaked me the hell out as a kid. I actually remember when the fight between Aubrey and Andrea, the wives, gets started towards the end of the episode, and the cameraman like kind of pops out of the floor and is starting to film them. For some reason, I remember that specifically giving me like the fright, honestly, because I don't know why, but he seemed like a robot man just having that camera. But it doesn't take away from the fact that that's how good Crypt was back in the 90s. That even though not all the episodes were something to be scared about, if you were the age that I was, which was under 10, it didn't matter. It was going to be scary regardless. Except for the fun that it is randomly the Christmas Tales from the Crypt episode. There's a few Tales from the Crypt Christmas episodes over the course of the series itself. And all through the house being the most memorable episode of not just their Christmas run, but of Tales from the Crypt in general here. But this is a Christmas episode, even though the story itself has nothing at all to do with Christmas. The wraparound segments with the Crypt Keeper, where he's hawking the Tales from the Crypt Christmas album, by the way, are great. But the episode itself has nothing at all to do with Christmas. So tell me in the comment section if you got a chance to check out The Pit or The Trap in its original run on the Fox run. If you've seen it since, what your thoughts on that are. And also let me know what episodes you'd like me to check out. Folks, I'm going to try to get to about 4 episodes here a month. So I'll be back here at the end of March with a couple more Crypt episodes for you. But if there's a couple you want me to check out, let me know that. And of course, get subscribed to my Linktree at linktr.ee/T Scary Movie. If you get subscribed, that's going to give you access to the YouTube page for the video versions of the show, your favorite podcasting platforms for the audio-only versions of the show, my Letterboxd page for written reviews and movie rankings through the year, to my TikTok page for full episodes, movie news, and movie premieres, to my Twitch page for horror gaming, and my Fangoria shop page for a 20% discount off anything in the Fangoria shop. Take advantage of that, folks. Hit that subscribe button. I got more great reviews coming your way. Coming up, I am talking about growing up with Tales from the Dark Side after a fantastic post on Twitter that reminded me how fearful that movie had me as a kid, had a stranglehold on me. We're going to be talking about that very, very soon, finishing off Mayfair Witches Season 2, Dexter Original Sin. Got so much good stuff coming out y'all's way. Don't want you to miss it. But that's it tonight, y'all. My name is T. We're talking scary movies. Stay scared.